What's going on YouTube, Fesify Media? Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel to be entered into our 200k subscriber giveaway. We'll be giving back to you random things. You have to be subscribed to the channel. This is week 1 of the Oliver Stevens trial, which will be posted for 3 weeks straight. The trial began around 11 AM this morning with the opening arguments from the prosecution, Alison Morgan. She said Ollie Stevens was attacked and stabbed by defendants in a park near his home. The defendants arranged an attack on Ollie Stevens with a girl. She lured Ollie to the location of the attack at Bugs Bottom in Emma Green. Morgan added that the attack had been planned by the defendants in the days leading up to January the 3rd. They were motivated by grievances they had with Ollie, and at least one of them had a knife with them. They carried out a joint attack and used a knife to stab Ollie in the chest and in the back. They fled the scene and would seek to dispose of incriminating messages on their phones before they were arrested. Morgan continued, messages exchanged in the days before the murder indicated that both defendants intended a knife should be used in the attack. From this, prosecution alleges that each defendant knew about the use of a knife and intended a knife should be used against Ollie. This is precisely what happened. According to Morgan, the girl, who was not standing trial today, agreed to set up the attack by luring Ollie to the location from his home address where he would be vulnerable to be ambushed by the defendants. The prosecution added Ollie was ambushed by the defendants. He was attacked while the girl stood by lending assistance by a presence of being there. Joint attack. Morgan added this was a joint attack by the defendants. After he was stabbed, the defendants fled the scene, leaving Ollie in the park. They knew of the seriousness of the attack on Ollie. They stood set about disposing of the evidence that linked them to the attack and the clothes they were wearing during the attack. Their ages are not a defense. Before the jury was dismissed for a break this morning, Morgan reminded them of their ages, 14 and 13 at the time of the incident. She said they was not acting in self-defense. They both intended to cause Ollie at least serious harm. Their ages are not a defense to the charges just because they were 14 and 13 years old. We are back from the break. Morgan is on her feet again and she's asking the jury to look at the CCTV stills of the defendant shortly before the incident of January the 3rd, 2021. Press can only see a very small screen showing what the prosecution is displaying for the jury. Morgan is highlighting the key locations involved in the incident, which occurred at Bugs Bottom playing fields in Emma Green. CCTV footage showed Ollie Stevens walking towards the top end of Bugs Bottom at 15:34 on January the 3rd, 2021. The two defendants in this case, who are now 14, deny murder and are on trial at Reading Crown Court. The girl, who is also 14, and one of the boys have both admitted manslaughter. None of the three can be named for legal reasons. The jury has just seen a video from one of the defendants' phones which shows a very short clip of someone handling a knife with a gold blade. Another video has been played of one of the defendants swinging a knife at the other defendant in a park on the evening of December 27th, just days before the incident. It said we are now hearing voice notes from the defendants sent regarding Ollie Stevens on Snapchat. In one of them, one defendant says, "Oi Ollie, suck your mum fam." Prosecutor Alison Morgan says these are messages being sent about Ollie in the 2 weeks before he was attacked. They demonstrated hostility towards Ollie. Voice notes from one defendant to another indicates they plan to use an e-scooter in the incident. One defendant was recording telling the other to bring a knife to the attack. Morgan is now talking the jury through the evidence from social media, in which one of the defendants spoke of the need to stab Ollie Stevens following an escalation in hostilities between the pair. Miss Morgan says the defendants by January 2nd were all engaging in hostile exchanges about Ollie and had started to talk about setting him up and attacking him. Another person connected with the setup told one of the defendants they felt like they were part of the murder team. The defendant responded on Snapchat, "No, it's not a murder." Alison Morgan alleges of one of the defendants he knew precisely what was going on, and he knew precisely what the consequences were likely to be. The prosecution says the defendant had a grievance with Ollie because the latter had snaked him. In a Snapchat voice note, one defendant described Ollie Stevens as an effing pagan. Prosecution Alison Morgan says this was not an agreement to have a fight. It was an ambush on Ollie Stevens when he was not expecting it. It was a planned attack which was designed to put Ollie in a vulnerable position, unaware of what was about to happen to him. The court hears how the girl involved in the case took over the planning of the attack and received messages from Ollie's sister the day before the incident asking her if she had seen Ollie because he had gone missing. One of the defendants in a voice note recording said Ollie would get banged when he saw him and he was going to get slapped up. In another voice note recording from the defendant, he said, "I hate that kid Ollie Stevens with a passion. If I was to see him right now, I would end up killing him." The girl involved in the attack said she wouldn't care if Ollie died, according to a message sent to one of the defendants. The girl said Ollie had been in trouble with his parents in the days leading up to the attack because he was caught with a knife. Prosecution Alison Morgan says hostile messages were exchanged between Ollie Stevens and one defendant between 5 AM and 6 AM of the morning of the incident, January the 3rd. The court hears how Ollie Stevens was talking to the girl who was setting up a meeting between them. At the same time, she was arranging for the two defendants standing trial today for Ollie's murder to meet Ollie at Bug. Ollie told the girl that he would not be allowed out to Emma Green to meet her as his parents didn't trust him. Meanwhile, the girl had arranged for the defendants to meet Ollie at Bugs Bottom. Footage of one of the defendants leaving his address to meet at the location showed him setting off on an electric scooter. The girl was persistently trying to get Ollie Stevens to meet away from his home address, the court hears. Now this is day 2 of the trial. It said so far this morning, prosecution Alison Morgan has made the following remarks about the moments leading up to the attack of Ollie. A man who saw the defendants and the girl minutes before the attack described her as happy and bouncing along. Another witness said one of the boys appeared more aggressive. Another different witness recalled the group, which included the defendants, the girl and 2 others, talking about taking different routes into Bugs Bottom. Call logs showed that the girl and Ollie tried to call each other several times the day of the incident. She was at the top of Bugs Bottom while the 2 defendants were at the bottom of the park. Ollie Stevens was wearing sliders when he left his house at 15:34 on the day of the incident. Prosecution Alison Morgan said if he had thought anything was about to happen, wouldn't he have wore something else? He only thought he was meeting the girl. He had no idea he was unknowingly walking into an ambush at this point. A cardiac nurse spotted the group at 3:30 on January the 3rd with the 2 defendants whizzed past her on their e-scooter along the central path in Bugs Bottom. She walked up the hill and looked round and see the altercation between the group and someone she later identified as Ollie Stevens. The nurse heard Ollie shout at the boys, calling them buggers or bastard. She saw punches thrown between Ollie and the defendants. She said she saw Ollie staggering about and claimed he didn't realise he had been stabbed. Ollie had been stabbed in his chest and the left of his body. An ambulance was called at 3:46 PM after a boy made a 999 phone call. He then ran to Ollie's address to get Ollie's father to come to the park. The nurse started CPR on Ollie after noticing blood coming from his mouth. CCTV from around the time shows Ollie's father running towards Bugs Bottom. Another separate witness saw the group of teenagers having a heated argument at around 3:35 PM on January the 3rd. 10 minutes later, he saw Ollie Stevens on the floor near to the place the teenagers had been having an argument. Another witness says that she saw the 2 teenagers exit in the park on an e-scooter. Prosecution Alison Morgan says this must have been the 2 defendants. He then saw 2 different male teenagers and a female teenager. Describing the female, he said, "I remember her strutting along and definitely looking over her right shoulder to where the injured male was. It seemed part of whatever conversation she was having with the males. This stuck in my mind later when I helped treat the injured male. She gave me a bit of an impression that she was a typical teenager girl who seemed a bit arrogant with these lads and a bit of a look at me, sort of like that. I remember thinking from her demeanour, it looked like she liked herself. She may have thought she was the queen bee or something like that. It sounds weird as I only saw her 10 to 15 seconds, but that's the impression I got." Emergency services were called at 15:46 and were directed to Oliver Stevens' location. They arrived to find Ollie being treated by the nurse, who identified the stab wounds and told the paramedics they have been doing CPR. Ollie was said to be unresponsive and not breathing when they arrived with blood coming out his mouth. Paramedics tried to treat him for 30 minutes before he was moved into the ambulance. A consultant arrived at the scene and emergency surgery was carried out in the ambulance. However, Ollie did not recover and it was decided treatment would stop. He was declared dead at 5 o'clock in January the 3rd, 2021. His parents and sister were at the scene when he was pronounced dead. The court is now hearing a report from a pathologist who has carried out an analysis of the stab wounds on Ollie Stevens. The length of the wound measured 9 centimeters deep according to the pathologist, as well as 2 stab wounds which were both on his chest, one to his front and one to his back. The pathologist found bruising to his head and neck. The pathologist concluded death occurred as a result of the stab wounds to the chest. Both of the wounds were life-threatening. The wounds were consistent and were being inflicted with a sharp-bladed weapon. The pathologist also said the following stab wounds, Ollie would have been able to run, walk, talk, shout for a period of time after the injury. The cause of death was given as stab wounds to the chest. An eyewitness saw the defendants fleeing the scene. One of them was on a phone shouting loudly, "Man, I need your advice, I need your advice." He said he thought they were running away from something. Within minutes of leaving Bugs Bottom, the pair had separated. The 3 others, including 2 separate boys and a girl, had also separated. The girl had called her mother to pick her up, and she picked her up in her Range Rover. One of the defendants travelled to the centre of Reading, and one of them travelled to their home address. One of the defendants made a call to a woman saying he loved her and to get rid of his number and delete it. By 4:36, police had arrived at the girl's home address to speak to her. And as for the 2 male defendants, they were, despite separating, calling each other after parting ways. One of the defendants boarded a bus on a street in Reading, and then he conducted an internet search for Reading stabbing. Correction, the other defendant conducted the internet search, not the defendant who boarded the bus. Alison Morgan says they were 14 and 13 at the time, but they were aware enough of what they had done to seek to get rid of the incriminating evidence. The elder defendant sent 2 voice note messages to someone saying something serious happened and that he couldn't talk about it over Snapchat. He also said he wouldn't be able to talk to the person he had messaged for a long time. The younger defendant had gone home to change clothes and put his used clothes in a carrier bag. He was caught on CCTV walking out of his house wearing different clothes. Police found a plastic bag with clothes in it 2 weeks later. Prosecutor Alison Morgan says the bag was placed at the junction of Palmer Park Avenue because the defendants deliberately wanted to dispose of the incriminating evidence. She says they nearly got away with it because it took police 2 weeks to find. Alison Morgan is playing a voice clip from an elder defendant to someone. In this clip he says, "Boy, it was on me and my boy innit. I started slapping him up and then my boy backed it out, fucking shanked him." Another clip from the elder defendant is played, in which he says he heard Ollie got emmed off. Miss Morgan says there was no trace of remorse from the defendant. She suggests there was excitement in his voice at being wanted by the police. Another voice clip played to the jury indicates the defendant was unsure whether Ollie had died, the prosecutor says. The elder defendant said in a voice note he's being chased by armed police, but he wasn't. Miss Morgan suggests he was showing off about the incident. Around the same time, the younger defendant was searching online for Reading stabbing and stabbing in Emma Green. The prosecution is now reading text messages between the younger defendant and the girl. In these exchanges, the defendant sent a screenshot of a news article with the headline, "Boy 13 killed in stabbing." Asked why he did it by the girl, he said it was out of pure anger. She replied, "You planned it, that isn't anger." He said, "I did not plan to effing kill him." The defendant also told the girl it was the biggest mistake of his life. Asked by a boy why he left Ollie bleeding, the defendant said he didn't see him bleeding because he was so effing angry. Asked how he managed to get Emma Green if their stabbing wasn't planned, the defendant said because the boy wanted to bang him. Asked why he didn't just break his arm or something by the girl, the defendant said he didn't mean to, that he just saw red and that he couldn't stop himself. In a voice memo, the older defendant said he had been mocking Ollie. The younger defendant told the older defendant not to talk to police if they were stopped and arrested. The elder defendant, who pleaded guilty to perverting the course of justice, yesterday deleted several files related to the incident from his phone, the prosecution says. Miss Morgan says the defendant deleted specific images, including pictures of him holding a knife. This is now day 3 of the trial. This morning, prosecution counsel Alison Morgan is examining a man in the witness box. She is asking about messages from the phones of the defendants and a girl who's involved in the incident. Ollie Stevens and a girl were talking using the house party app in the hours before his death. In a question posted to Snapchat, Ollie is described as a bitch and a snake in a message posted from an unknown user. Before the attack, Ollie and the elder defendant exchanged messages in which they appeared to be attacking one another with insults. On the morning of Ollie's death, he sent a video of himself in the bathroom to a friend on Snapchat. In the hours before Ollie's death, Ollie and the girl were messaging about meeting up. In the text messages read out in the call, he said he wasn't sure if he could meet her on that day, January the 3rd, as his parents would see him out, and he asked if he could meet somewhere else. He said he would get into trouble if he met the girl at Emma Green, as they don't trust me. CCTV footage showed the younger defendant leaving his home to travel to Bugs Bottom on his e-scooter around 2 hours before Ollie was stabbed. More footage shows the 2 defendants meeting outside a co-op on London Road in Reading around 2 hours before the incident. At around 2 PM on January the 3rd, Ollie Stevens tried to call the girl he had arranged to meet while she was on the phone to one of the defendants accused of his murder. At 2:18 PM, the defendants are filmed on CCTV riding the younger's e-scooter through Caversham Lock. The defendants are caught on CCTV riding the e-scooter on George Street in Caversham at 14:26. At the same time, the girl was filmed on CCTV on Buckingham Drive, leaving her home address travelling towards a Budgeon store. The girl meets with a boy who's not one of the defendants at a budging store on a road minutes after leaving her home address. The girl then walks along Kidmore End Road at 2:30 p.m. At 2:35 p.m, the defendants are seen entering a shop on Henley Road in Caversham. Around this time, the elder defendant receives a call from the girl. CCTV footage shows the pair in the shop in winter clothing paying for an item. At around 14:40, the girl sends voice messages saying, "Why am I scared? We're setting up Ollie, I'm scared." At 2:50 p.m, the defendants are filmed on CCTV riding their e-scooter on Buckingham Drive. 3 boys, none of which are the defendants but who are all linked up to the incident, meet at a budging store on Cavendish Road on 2:51 p.m. They meet with the defendants and the girl around this time, who then departs to Kidmore Road. We're still going through CCTV minutes before the attack. The latest clip played in CCTV is the 2 defendants and a girl walking past the Black Horse pub in Emma Green at 2:53 p.m, around half an hour before the incident. By 14:58, the 2 groups, one of the 2 defendants and a girl and one of the 3 boys, had met up on Grove Road in Emma Green. By 15:23, CCTV showed the 2 defendants and 2 other boys on a road in Caversham, the youngest defendant followed by the elder defendant, then moving to Bugs Bottom from this location. Handset location data also showed the girl at a different location in Bugs Bottom. At 3:25 p.m, the 2 boys who are not the defendants leave Bugs Bottom and re-enter a different road. The 2 boys then re-enter Bugs Bottom at 3:27 p.m. The girl then calls Ollie Stevens, who then tries to call the girl moments later. Meanwhile, 2 of the boys, not the defendants, are trying to ring the girl at the same time. At 3:34 p.m, Ollie Stevens leaves his house to head towards Bugs Bottom. The girl leaves him messages telling him to answer his phone. Location data from the girl's phone shows she's 20 meters from the road Ollie leaves. The next update from the afternoon is a 999 call from one of the boys who is not a defendant but was also at the park following the altercation between Ollie Stevens and the boys. Prosecution Alison Morgan QC says the call will not hear the call. The 999 call came in at 3:46 p.m. At 3:47 p.m, CCTV footage shows the 2 defendants riding away from Bugs Bottom on their e-scooter. At 4:10 p.m. on Richmond Road, the girl was picked up by a car and taken away. We've not been shown it, but Miss Morgan says the camera that picked up Ollie Stevens leaving his house at 3:34 p.m. picked up his father running towards Bugs Bottom at 3:53 p.m. after one of the boys, not a defendant, had alerted him to what happened in the park. The younger defendant was spotted riding past the Jolly Angela at 4 p.m. Moments later, the elder defendant sends a voice note over Snapchat to someone in which he says, "I love you, please delete my number now." A police officer arrives at the girl's address at 4:28 p.m. where she gives her first account of what happened. It's around this time that Ollie Stevens' mother made contact with the girl's mother. The elder defendant is caught on a bus in the centre of Reading at 5:22 p.m. While on the bus, he tried to call the girl early at 4:50 p.m. The younger defendant searched for Reading stabbing online. At around 5:30 p.m, the 2 defendants managed to call each other. Other calls are made to the boys who were not at the scene. And the elder defendant called someone to tell him something serious had happened and they probably won't see him for a long time. The CCTV footage showed just after 6 p.m. shows the younger defendant heading towards London Road, having changed his clothes and carrying a bag. The last clip of the 2 defendants together is recorded on Wokingham Road at 6:51 p.m. A lot of stuff was repeated on this day 3, and now we move on to the next day, day 4, of this trial regarding Oliver Stevens. This is the last day of trial this week, and it's day 5, which is the Friday, and it starts off by saying Snapchat voice notes from the older defendant are being played in court after the defendants parted ways the evening of Ollie's death. We've just heard the voice note where one of the defendants says he doesn't know if Ollie got M'd. Despite what the prosecution says yesterday about the defendants being spotted together for the last time just before 7 p.m, Alison Morgan corrects herself and says the defendants were again seen together on Wokingham Road at around 7 p.m. The defendants had split up by 7:57 p.m. as CCTV footage shows the younger defendant and another boy on London Road at this time. The elder defendant claimed he was being chased by armed police at 8 p.m. and at 8:15 p.m. the younger defendant searches for Reading stabbing and stabbing in Emma Green on his phone. At around 8:30 p.m, the younger defendant is talking to a friend online. After she asked if he killed Ollie, he says it was the biggest mistake of his life. She said he was 12 years old and he responded he was 13 and I'm effing sorry. He adds, I wish I effing didn't. A man messaged the younger defendant saying, "So when my man was bleeding, you just left him?" He responds, "I didn't see him bleeding, I was so angry." The younger defendant said he was at the scene because my boy wanted to bang him. He says he saw red at the time of the incident and couldn't stop himself. An RIP Ollie screenshot with a picture of the 13-year-old appears on the older defendant's phone in the evening. Instagram was uninstalled from the younger defendant's phone at 10:56 p.m. He also told a friend he would delete Snapchat. In a text message, the younger defendant told a friend he was very hated and very sorry. He then tells a girl he is deleting Snapchat was deleted 2 minutes later. Prosecution Alison Morgan says the older defendant handed himself in London Valley Police Station at 12:26 a.m. on January the 4th. The girl who lured Ollie to Bugs Bottom was arrested at 1:52 a.m. and the younger defendant was arrested at 1:56 a.m. The prosecution is reading a statement from a man named Barry Hayden from January the 5th. He says he saw the girl and the 2 boys on the corner of Peppard Road and Grove Road at 2:45 p.m. on January the 3rd. The next witness statement summarized comes from Richard Hardling, giving it on January 6, 2021. He saw the group all together at 3:15 p.m. He described the girl was looking excited, happy and bouncing along. A third witness statement comes from the same day. She also saw the group on the afternoon of Ollie's death. She described one of the boys being dressed in all black and he appeared to be slightly more aggressive than the other boys. He looked older than the other ones and was more vocal. Another witness, she says at around 3:36 p.m. she saw the 2 boys coming out the woods at Bugs Bottom. She said both of them had scooters when she saw them. She says the first boy came quite close to her, within touching distance. She claims she heard one boy say to the other that they were all at the other bench. She told him where the other bench was. She heard one of them say, "I can't be effed to go up there." She later saw the 2 other males on one scooter. She said these 2 boys were wearing all black clothing. She says all 4 boys went up to the central path through Bugs Bottom and lost sight of them in the tree cover. She claims she thought the boys on the one scooter were trying not to draw attention to themselves as their faces were really covered. More witness statements are now being read by the prosecution. Mr. Barry is reading a statement from a man named Jake who gave a statement on January 6th. Jake went for a walk his dogs through Bugs Bottom at 3 p.m. He says he saw the group of boys at Hunter's Chase. Jake says they was discussing about the 2 different routes to get to Bugs Bottom and meeting a girl there. He heard that the boys in a wooded area of Bugs Bottom talking on the phone but could not describe what was being said and described the conversation as street talk. A new witness says she was walking her dogs near Bugs Bottom at around 3:50. She heard electric scooters approaching her. She caught a glimpse of the scooters and their riders as they travelled along the site's bridleway. She said she saw 3 or 4 boys on scooters moving faster than walking pace. She heard electric scooters approaching her and said she caught a glimpse of the scooters and their riders as they travelled along the site's bridleway. A new statement from Mr. Mason is now being read. He gave his statement on January 6th. He was cycling with his daughter on January 3rd. He noticed 4 people on the road walking towards him near Bugs Bottom, which included the 2 defendants. A statement from a schoolboy 2 years older than Ollie Stevens is being read now. He saw one of the boys, not a defendant, and a girl walking past him in Caversham, and they cut through the wooded area into Bugs Bottom. Barry Hunter is in a witness stand and says he's known Ollie Stevens' parents for more than 20 years and attended their wedding. Mr. Hunter described seeing more than 3 boys in Bugs Bottom near the woods on the afternoon of January the 3rd. Mr. Hunter says he saw the girl and Ollie Stevens at Bugs Bottom. Ollie Stevens saw Mr. Hunter and said it's Judy and Barry to the person he was next to. He described Ollie as smiling. As he departed away from Ollie's position, he shouted, "All the best, Ollie." That's all the evidence we'll hear from Mr. Hunter, who departs the courtroom. The last witness statement is coming now. This is from Francisco and was given to the police on January the 13th. He says he was out walking on the afternoon of the incident and saw a group of 3 people, including the girl. One of them was Ollie Stevens and the other was a boy, the boy who later alerted Ollie's father to the stabbing. He walked up the hill at 3:30 p.m. when he initially saw the group and walked down 20 minutes later on. On his walk down, he saw Ollie Stevens being resuscitated and watched until he noticed Ollie's father arriving at the scene. Another witness, Ben Chambers, saw the defendants travelling on their e-scooter heading up the hill of Bugs Bottom at 3:41 p.m. A man named Miles described seeing the girl and 2 boys in Bugs Bottom. He said one of the boys looked at him with a "what are you looking at" stare. He was later told by a woman who was standing still that a boy had collapsed. He rushed to the spot where he had collapsed as he was an ex-lifeguard to see if he could assist. By the time he got there, the woman was giving him CPR and was told that an ambulance had been called. As he exited the park, he saw Ollie's father and sister running towards the scene. This is going to be a long trial and we're going to cover every detail. Week 2 will be dropped next week, so stay tuned to the channel. I'll see you on my next one. Rest in peace to Ollie Stevens. Peace out.